Josh, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate having you on here. For me, it's almost like I've seen your beer so many times in the liquor store and whatever, and it's just like I don't know. It's just really great to be able to talk to you. So yeah, you're the founder of Good Robot Brewing, and you started off with one location. Now you're up to I guess three locations, and you have your own. You have a new factory too. That we're going to talk all about this stuff because you guys are doing some really cool stuff and. I think with your factory, you're saying basically if it's a liquid, it can go into a can.
Basically.
Yeah. So which is really cool. So we're going to dive all into that stuff. But I just want to go back a little bit to the beginning and just kind of talk about you in terms of your childhood. So your parents owned a dinner theater.
A murder mystery dinner theater.
Murder mystery dinner theater.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. What was it like to live in a household that was, I guess it's really kind of unconventional, right? Because it's not very many parents are gonna, own a dinner theater like that,
Mhm.
right? So what was that like growing up in an entrepreneurial slash kind of creative household?
I think anything a child is surrounded by becomes normalized. So what was strange to me was I was born in Ottawa. Most of my friends' parents had government jobs. Usually their titles were things that a child couldn't understand. What is procurement? What is a director? What we did understand was my dad's self-appointed title was, I think it was chief murder investigator or, detective was what he wrote in his emails, something to that effect.
That's funny.
A kid can get that. A kid could go to his shows, and me and my friends used to go for my birthday and at Christmas and whatnot. And it was really fun with the over the top theatrics and the blood spraying everywhere and whatnot. They could go and they could see and tangibly understand what it is that he did. And he'd come home with, toy weapons and guns and blanks and things that were a lot of fun for a kid. And we would do murder mysteries on my birthday. So for me, and then mom worked 2 or 3 jobs at any given time. She would have the headset on, answering client calls, customers who wanted to book reservations for the murder mystery dinner theater. So she'd be doing that while cooking dinner. And she also drove bus. So she'd drive home,
It's a lot of things.
take the bus home, then take the calls while cooking dinner, and she would also do, she had a hospitality background, but once she had kids, she pivoted more to sort of secretary and administration stuff. So it was all
Yeah.
just normal. And you only sort of realized, I imagine, similar to being a daughter of a politician or the son of a billionaire, you only realize it's not par for the course when
Right.
you start getting out in the world and seeing other people's lives.
Yeah.
Oh, you get home Friday night at 5 or 6 p.m. for dinner. That's prime time for the murder mystery.
Right.
Dad would show up at 2 a.m. on
Yeah.
the weekends. You wouldn't see him. So it was only when you went out that you started to go, okay, this is not what every other kid is exposed to.
But not certainly not in a bad way. Do you
No.
think did that form a good impression on you in terms of wanting to be an entrepreneur or getting into business? Or do you think it's just, I just had that and that was okay, but there was other factors that made you want to go into business?
Yeah, I think very subconsciously.
Mm.
I wanted to work for Disney as an Imagineer. That's why I studied mechanical engineering. I wanted to build rides uh, to make people happy and to surprise people. The term entrepreneur was kind of alien to me, even though my grandpa, my dad's dad, was an entrepreneur and he ran lumber yards and he worked in corn and various other things. And he was kind of a business leader in this 900 person community in rural Idaho.
Mhm.
And then dad had the murder mystery business that my mom and he co-owned. But the term entrepreneur never got said, never got thrown around. And it was only years into starting Good Robot that I sort of reflected on that and went, oh, this kind of makes sense.
Right.
My uncle is, he patented some kind of corn production product in Oregon in the States that made a lot of money. And my grandpa
Okay.
had all his little businesses. He had an overhead door company for garages. He had the lumber yard, and then my dad and I just went and looked and went, okay, well, it's sort of there.
Yeah, it kind of makes it. You're looking back, it's like, oh yeah, that kind of makes sense where you ended up. Yeah, that's even though you didn't deliberately actually think about, hey, I'm going to be an entrepreneur because this is what my parents were doing, but it just naturally kind of flowed. That's interesting. So you're mentioning about Disney and being an Imagineer, and I kind of love that the whole Disney thing because I mean I think lots of us love Disney growing up. I love Disney and the kid of the 80s and 90s. They came Aladdin, Beauty and the Beast, Little Mermaid, all these great things that were coming out. And for you though, it kind of really inspired you. Like you said, you wanted to build these great experiences for people, and you went on a trip to Disney World, and then you're like, this is what I want to do. I want to create these amazing experiences. And I heard too that you went to your guidance counselor and they're like, I want to be able to do this.
Yeah.
What do I need to do? And they're like, you need to become an engineer. And
Yeah.
then you ended up becoming an engineer. Was that advice that lady gave you, or I don't know if it's a lady or not, but their guidance counselor was.
She
that,
was.
Well, yeah, she was. Was that the best advice? Because I've heard you talk about you being like a recovering engineer, so
Yeah.
it's not so much maybe in your DNA so much anymore. So, but yeah, I just want to ask you: was that the best advice that you've gotten when you're a kid there?
I think a few more clarifying questions could have helped, because what I loved about Disney was we could never afford to go as kids, but we were obsessed. Me and my brothers would go down to the video store. I had a bike. I was one of those bike route at age 6 type kids, and we rent this VHS of the Disney Vacation Planning VHS, and we watch it. And we grew up in a very wealthy neighborhood, but we were not.
Yeah.
And so we saw all the kids around us going to Disney, and it sounded amazing. We watched this tape. It turns out you could get that tape for free.
Yeah,
Disney would mail them out. We didn't know we were.
Yeah,
You know how like the wealthy have the information that
yeah.
the poor are paying for something you can get for free.
It's a marketing tool, of course. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So we would go out and get that. And what I really liked about it was, I had this great aunt who passed away when I was about 13. She left us some money, and my parents paid off some of their debt with the business. They bought our first computer as a family. And then they told us they were going to take us to Disney, which was incredibly exciting. We went, and teenagehood was not fun for me or for my brothers. And this Disney experience just brought us together. I found so much. Everything from the parking lot attendant to the ticket taker to the phone calls that you would get from customer service was just so in the spirit of camaraderie and magic and bringing people together that I just I want to create that for others. It was anti-alienation antidote. And I loved it. And that's what I wanted to do. The term Imagineer was maybe a little bit misleading because there's a lot that goes into a ride, from the story to the design and so on and so forth. And I think I liked more of that and less of the math and science and the mechatronics that go into a mechanical piece of equipment moving through a show set. So I think I misunderstood what I was getting into, and then it ended up being 6 years, because I did a master's since I had no idea what to do after my undergrad. 6 years of
that's so funny. I was the same way. What do I do now?
What do I do
now?
Just
more school.
I
idea.
felt unqualified to go into the workforce. So I studied more, and I got a summer job that was intended for a second year student. Mucked up the interview, but still bumbled into it somehow. That turned into a master's. So, math and science are in Western society are often brutally hard. We think of them as hard, and therefore they are. And somehow made my way through that relatively well, but definitely knew I don't think this is it, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
And there were other parts of engineering I did like. I always liked the salespeople on the engineering floor, the ones who were kind of traveling to Japan to sell this software or this service or this product. And I went, that looks kind of fun.
Dealing with the people,
right? So I liked the rides, but it was more the people on the rides that was interesting to me.
I feel like oftentimes with entrepreneurs, the reason they kind of go into that vocation, I guess, is because they're almost unhappy with what they're doing. And a lot of the times people are unhappy with what they're doing because they don't really know how to fully articulate or to bring about what they want to do in an actual career. And then they ask their guidance counselors, oh, this is kind of what I want. They're like, oh yeah, go do this. And without even, like you said, they never really asked me more follow-up questions, maybe because building experiences, there's, like you said, there's so many different things that go beyond just the physical building of the actual ride itself. There's like the branding, and there's the dealing with people. Like you said, there's the people that are in the parking lots that are
Yeah.
greeting people. There's just so many different things that go into it. So
Massive.
to just be like, oh, engineer, that's the way, and that's it. So,
And I can't imagine being a guidance counselor and telling teenagers who are inherently stubborn, you should consider this, and they don't take the advice. And then you get the kid that does, which was me.
Mhm.
And then their entire career trajectory is based off that one conversation
Yeah.
because they don't know better, and they were
Yep.
looking for expert advice.
Right.
And they do the thing, and their gut is saying, there's something, I don't know, this doesn't resonate.
Right.
This isn't fun. This isn't meaningful. All the other kids are more technically competent
Right. Yeah.
at it. It's struggle, and there was no sort of joy to it. And people said, just get through the academic part of it.
Just stick through it.
Just
Yep.
get the degree, and then you can do anything. Mr. Bean is an engineer.
It's really
Yeah.
the Rowan Atkinson guy?
Mechanical
Okay,
engineer. Yeah. There's tons of former engineers who did all kinds of stuff, from president of the United States to comedian. So, got the degree and then went, now what? No idea how to get to Disney from there. I got the degree and then didn't have the connections.
Yeah. That brings us into, I guess, maybe we could talk about Good Robot and founding that company. And you did it with two other engineering buddies too? Or
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe you could just
Housemates.
talk a little bit about how that kind of formed and how that started.
Yeah, I like to call myself the third founder. Angus and Doug were housemates in college. We lived together for 4 years, and we had kind of a house of misfits. I don't think we didn't call it that at that time.
Mm-hmm.
But when you looked at the average Queen's University crowd where we did our undergrad, next door was the football team. Across the street was the lacrosse team. On the other side was the cheerleading
Oh
team.
my goodness.
I mean, and it was just like you can the picture you have in your head right now of what they
Mhm.
look like is 100% correct.
Yeah,
I can
okay,
tell,
yeah.
right? And then we had this house of nerds, and Angus was like a wedding DJ working
Mhm.
summers and throwing rocks in the oil fields of Alberta. And Doug
Oh,
had
jeez, yeah.
an accounting and government background and came from a farm. We had a super genius math guy, a pot dealer, stoner guy, and one gal out of 7, just like a
Yeah.
really bad sitcom.
Mhm. Sitting around trying to figure out how to get those cheerleading girls to come to your houses on Saturday night.
No, we had no interest because we found they were just, they were pretty, but
Yeah.
when you talk to them, there was no substance.
Right.
We found, and they didn't like us, right? They
Mm.
they made that very clear. So we had this house of rejects that we brought. We had buddies on the football team who would show up. We had a guy who got kicked off the football team. We
Mhm.
had the bouncer from the local nightclub who we met one night.
Mhm.
We had the guys who worked the poutine counter at the poutine shop around the corner.
Okay. Yeah.
We had all these very different people, and when you walked in,
It's like the unlikely heroes.
the unlikely, sort of Mighty Ducks type situation.
Mm.
When you walked in, it didn't look like a standard party. It didn't feel like one. They were usually curated and themed. And the thing that a lot of Queens kids did, because they were smart money people, but had no customer service skills because they came from money, they would buy beer really cheap, and their focus was to make money with a kegger. And our focus was always to never run out of beer.
Right.
That was our slogan. Don't
Yeah.
run out of beer.
Okay.
And we did some crazy things at 1 a.m. when we got close. We took kegs from other people's houses and rolled them down the streets on longboards like a kilometer away. And we never ran out of beer because we cared about the experience more than we cared about making a profit. We never made a profit. This is the house in college I'm talking about.
This is still just the
But
house.
it ties into kind of our
Okay, that's what I was
philosophy.
thinking. Okay, yeah.
When we launched our first brew pub, with these two guys on Roby Street in the north end of Halifax, this is what translated. Was we didn't think about money. We thought about guest experience, right? And it was the beer doesn't run out in college, and at this place, the person doesn't have a bad time. Their glass doesn't run out. That became very much the forefront. Was extremely guest experience focused. Even though between the three of us, none of us had ever worked at a bar except me for 3.5 shifts.
That's a story on its own.
That's
I
a
guess.
story. Say that for another podcast. But it was very much about the individual who was at the door, not what's in their pocket, and that has been a contributor to much of our success and much of our detriment as well.
When you say much to your detriment, what do you mean by that?
Well, there's this guy, Will Guevara, who hospitality titan. He ran 11 Madison Park in New York, and he's got a great book called Unreasonable Hospitality. I think it's called that. And in it, he talks about restaurant smart versus corporate smart, and he learned both. He started at Danny Meyer's joints, like Shake Shack and Union Hospitality, Union Street, whatever restaurant. And when he was there, he learned about phenomenal hospitality and guest experience. But the numbers weren't quite adding up to what they could and should. And then he worked for a conglomerate that had however many dozens of locations. And that's where he learned corporate smart, was how to properly inventory, how to properly make margin contribution, and so on and so forth. And he said, I think there's something between the two. They're not mutually exclusive. You can have an incredible experience and also be healthy. In the formative years of our company, we were only focused on guest experience, which made the financial position of the company,
I see. Yeah.
unsustainable. And you kind of stumble into that part later.
Right. Yeah.
The problem that I've seen in the last few years that's not unique to our company, but our company has experienced, is that after COVID, everyone's relearning how to be together in a physical room again. And companies had to bean count for a couple of years and become streamlined operations-wise. And they haven't recovered on the customer and guest experience.
Like how to
piece
treat
yet.
people as
How to treat
human
people.
beings in a sense, and give them experience that they're going to actually want to come back and spend their money. Yeah.
The average, I don't know about you, but the average guest experience I have, whether
it's
in
horrible.
Halifax or globally, and with some good companies, has gone so downhill in the last 7 years. It's still rebounding. And even the really, really good companies, I went to Disney in 2022, fresh in the pandemic, abysmal customer service. We had a shareholder who worked at Disney, and we sat in the Japanese pavilion at Epcot and drank sake together. And he told me when they were forced to let everyone go to close the gates because of COVID, then 6 weeks later, Florida was like, screw this, we're reopening. And Disney had let go of 50,000 people. And now they had 4 weeks to onboard tens of thousands of people. So they had to pay for the first time, I think, in their company's history, third-party HR companies to onboard a boatload of people all at the same time.
And they couldn't just bring back the original staff because I guess some of them found other jobs or whatever.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And you felt it and you noticed it. It was rough. Now I'm sure they've bounced back now. But if a company like,
it's already left a sour taste in your mouth though, right? Because you're like, well, maybe.
as a hospitality owner, a smaller capacity, I got it. Believe me, it's not fun laying off your workforce, and we had to do it multiple times in Nova Scotia, whereas Florida never went back. But I got it. I got why it didn't leave too bad of a taste. It just was like, if Disney struggles with this, what hope does a small or medium-sized business in the hospitality space have?
But I love how it goes full circle into you wanting to create memorable experiences for people, but then you kind of work your way into this house of misfits, and then you get into this position where you create something which has nothing to do with Disney in a sense of like rides or their movies or whatever, but you find a way to put your love of wanting to create experiences for people into some type of business where it's people getting together, having a beer, being themselves, and just having a good time and making sure that they always have a good time. So I think that's really cool.
And lots of inspiration from Disney too. I mean, they're titans of design, they're titans of hospitality. So if you walk into our tap room, you'll see many Disney influences. The foyer is inspired by the line at Space Mountain. The room is really tiny. It's actually an old residence and an old Mediterranean restaurant smashed into one.
Okay.
But we use this technique of forced perspective that Disney makes to make its buildings look bigger. We do this same thing. The architectural firm Breakhouse was like, well, we're going to stage the opening so that the ceiling gets a little bit higher as you enter the space a little bit at a time.
And it opens up the space in a sense.
Right. It makes it look like a much more impressive, larger building than it is. When you stand outside, you go, it's tiny. When you go inside, you're like, oh, there's quite a bit of breathability in here. So there's all kinds of Disney touches, and including on our onboarding, our hiring actually features a question that Disney asked me when I interviewed with them
Mm.
that I'm pretty sure cost me the job.
Yeah.
They asked, "Who's your favorite Disney villain?" I thought Disney had the most fun interview I have ever done, still to this day. The problem was that I saw it as fun and casual instead of, oh, they're using these questions to dig into your psychosis a little bit
Right. And
and
see who you are as a person,
see
I
who
guess.
you are as a
Yeah,
person.
yeah.
And what I told
So do I want to work with this person? Yeah. A year ago, what did you say then?
Well, this was for their Canada Trade program to work at the Canadian Pavilion in Epcot.
Okay.
So you're basically in customer service. You're going to be a janitor or a character or somebody who introduces the band on stage or whatever. And that's really not my forte. You don't want me in front of the guests necessarily, right? And what I said was, I was honest. I said my favorite Disney villain is the coachman from Pinocchio. And the two interviewers looked at each other and went, "Oh, we don't even know who that is." And I said, "Oh man, he's great. He's the guy who kidnaps the truant boys around town and sends them to Pleasure Island, where they smoke cigars and binge drink, and then they turn into donkeys, and he sells those donkeys to the salt mines."
Perfect. That's perfect to work with our kids.
Right. Yeah. Get this guy in front of some kids right now. Right. And they just looked horrified. And I went, in terms of evil, that's the best villain you guys have ever pushed out.
But you're thinking that it's a good story. It's a good villain, but they're not. That's not what they're really going for.
I should have said a cute villain, like that snake with a lisp from Jungle Book or whatever. Right. He's sweet or whatever. But we still ask that. My profile on our company comms platform is still rejected Disney candidate, just sort of tying into that House of Misfits theme.
That's funny.
And we still ask to this day in every interview, even for high level positions, who's your favorite Disney villain?
Okay. And you're looking for not so much of what the response is of the actual character, but just seeing like what is it that you're looking for then? What do you want to hear? Or I don't know if I'm giving away any of your secret sauce here.
No, it's okay. Truthfully, I didn't know. I'm making assumptions about what Disney was looking for. So I'm not looking for anything in particular, right or wrong, but I'm curious to see how they respond. If they are a bartender and they shut down, that's a bad sign. The bartender should have an answer for everything.
Right.
Nobody wants to hear, "I don't know," in customer service.
Interesting. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Somebody who's very analytical, let's say if they were doing accounting, I might want to hear an in-depth analysis about why that character. But more than anything, I just don't want people to half-ass it.
Right.
If they write a single word in the application, just scar.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we know the level of effort you put into this, and we probably can't expect that you'll try to go above and beyond for your coworkers or guests.
Do you remember a most memorable answer for one of those questions?
Tons. Yeah, we've had some fabulous answers. What was interesting was when Disney started buying all the different IPs. They bought Pixar in the early 2000s, right? And then they bought Lucasfilm and they bought Fox and whatnot. So suddenly, and Marvel. So suddenly, Disney villain could include Darth Vader.
Right. Never even thought about that. Yeah.
Right. And so it was really neat to see the candidate kind of outsmart you and go like Darth Vader. And you're like, Darth Vader. Oh yeah.
I guess. Yeah,
and you go like, that's okay. That's interesting that you would think of them as a Disney villain. So that always caught me off guard. There was one server. She was so phenomenal. Her answer for the villain was somebody, I can't remember which character it was, but it was somebody who was not really a villain. Who ended up making a turnaround. Yeah. And she's like, oh, and he's cute and he's sweet and right. And you're like, this person is so sort of angelic. You're like, you have to.
Just such a sweet person.
You need to be in front of people.
Right.
So there's lots of positive ones like that, but then there's been a lot that were just. One guy went on an absolute multi-page essay about a Marvel character that I didn't know, and I said, I gotta at least talk to this guy. Right. Because it was so much thought about this character.
So moving back to, I guess, the brewery. So I mentioned earlier there in the introduction that you started with a single location, but now you're up to 3. Can you maybe just walk us through all the great stuff you're doing? We have some cans here. You got some great products and stuff. Can you maybe just talk about, how you've grown and the things that you're doing right now?
Yeah, there's the business we're known for, and there's the business we're not known for. you could call our company 2 or 3 companies, at least 2 though. We started in hospitality, hospitality first company with an 800 square foot miniature brewery in the back of an audio garage and 2 residences and an abandoned restaurant that we converted into a tap room. And then over the years, we opened 2 more beer garden / stores, one in Elmsdale and another at the Halifax Common. That's the hospitality division. Then we've got our wholesale, which is the product sitting right there. We've been the fastest growing for 2 years in our category. We went from number 15 to number 8 or maybe number 7 now in the province. And we're in New Brunswick, we're in PEI, we're in Newfoundland liquor stores, and we're expanding west again. So you could take those 2 sides and say that's the Good Robot brand.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got the beverage factory, which is basically a world-class manufacturing facility that can make and package most liquids into an aluminum can, whether it's an energy drink or juice or non-alcoholic wine or non-alcoholic beer or tea. You know, we can do that, and we can make the liquid, and we can also put it into a skinny can or a tall can or a short can, and we could do a label that gets printed onto the aluminum, or we can do a label that gets rolled onto the aluminum, and we can do 24 packs of 3 flavors for Costco and get you into Costco because we have Costco accreditation. Or we can put it into a corrugated cardboard pack and ship it to London or to Taipei. You know, so we basically have this facility that produces Good Robot's beer and is accredited for organic. It's accredited HACCP, which is an international grocery safety standard, essentially. CFIA, which is food safety in Canada. All kinds of things no brewery in the province or most in Canada don't have. And so we can make our beer at a level that's incredibly consistent and high in quality and safe. And we can also make all these other beverages for other Atlantic brands who want to expand without paying millions of dollars for equipment and taking on that debt risk.
Yeah, I feel like that's genius because here you are, you know, you're crafting beer and you're creating this product, and then you're cutting out like so many middlemen in the sense of like, why don't we go through this whole process of being able to manufacture and package it ourselves? And then not only that, it's like you have this whole other industry open up to you in order to be able to manufacture goods for other people. So what you're saying before about what you can do, put any kind of liquid in a can. So if I, as a company, wanted to have the unconventional mindset, you know, brain drink or whatever that's going to make everyone super smart or whatever it is, I could come to you and you can help me out with all those steps of the process of even figuring out what a good recipe is going to be for the drink. You could walk me through that whole process of like ideation, even to figuring out how we could even get into the stores. Is that kind of correct?
It's kind of correct. It's pretty correct. The challenging with manufacturing is that it's a volume game. It's very expensive to do, and so you need a lot of volume.
Right.
We are a really good solution for products that are already in the market and have a shelf.
I see.
That said, we do work with a lot of startups, and sometimes we can formulate their recipe for them in-house. We have the talent, but we're so busy producing products that any disruption of that really kind of agitates things a little too much.
Yeah.
So we can either help formulate it or we can point you in the right direction of someone that can. The challenge is when you build the manufacturing facility for someone and they don't have to do that and learn the ropes of manufacturing, they don't understand how complicated the minutiae are.
Yeah.
And so they come to you and they say, I want to make, and this is a real example from this week, I want to make a hard iced tea and sell it in New Brunswick.
Like a Mike's Hard Lemonade kind
like
of thing.
Like a Mike's Hard Lemonade, right? And you go, well, we can do that, but do you have the compliance pieces taken care of?
By that you mean?
The legal pieces.
Oh, okay.
Right? You're selling a controlled substance.
Right.
You can't just go like, I'm going to make and sell marijuana. I mean, you can. Plenty of people do. Plenty of people. And you can do the same bootlegging,
Right.
Right. You can rum run if you like.
Yeah.
You can't just walk into ANBL, which is New Brunswick's liquor corporation, and say, I've got this hard iced tea I made. and I've got 6,000 liters of it, and now can we put it on shelf?
Yeah.
There's a bunch of administrative work that leads up to that point. So we can point them in the right direction for that stuff, but they have to put in a minimal viable amount of effort before they're ready to manufacture at scale. And if they're not willing to do that, you know they're probably not ready for what we do.
At what point too does the product itself have to be good? Because I mean, you could say like, oh, I want to bring this into the liquor store or whatever, and I just produced it. Here you go. They're not just going to take it too. Like it's got to be a good product too, no?
You know, the funny thing about quality is Francis McGuire, who is the head of ACOA, Atlantic Canada Opportunities Agency. He did this speech, this presentation for us at Wallace McCain Institute, which is an entrepreneurial organization I'm a member of. And he said, quality is not a differentiator.
Really?
Prove to me that Big Mac tastes worse than that steak. Prove to me, right? With metrics.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Very difficult to do, yeah.
What metrics do you have? You can't say, well, it has all these artificial ingredients. Okay. How do you measure that? Does the population not like it? Oh, it has more sugar. Do people not like sugar? What's the number one selling beverage in the world?
Yeah.
Right? Price is a differentiator. Speed is a differentiator.
Yeah.
Right? Those are meaningful. Quality is not. Quality is subjective. You can't, from a business standpoint, prove that a product sucks if it's selling.
Right. Yeah.
So we often have people coming to us talking about it has to be high in quality. And you go, what do you mean? Define it for me.
I see.
Do you mean consistent from batch to batch, which is something that small producers struggle with? Do you mean that it has to follow compliance so that if you say it has 0 grams of sugar, it has 0 grams of sugar? If it's an alcoholic or fermented product, does it have to be fermented to a certain density? And so on and so forth. Give us the metrics.
Right.
And we can do that. But what we can't do is people have an idea in their head, and this is what it should taste like. Now make it for me.
Yeah, that's never going to happen. Yeah,
It's never going to happen because I don't know what's in your head.
Right.
You can describe it. Oh, it's a lemonade. It's not too sweet. No, well, how not too sweet?
Right, exactly.
Give me the grams per liter.
Because your sweet might be my sour. I don't know, whatever, right? Yeah.
Bingo. Right. My grandma would sit there and put back an entire box of chocolates. You could not give that woman enough sugar. Thin as a bone, you know, and this red meat was too rich for her.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Tell me what's too sweet. Tell me what's too rich.
So that's interesting. So maybe, is there a way that we can throw this back to just other entrepreneurs that might be listening about thinking about quality? Because it's a problem that I've struggled with a lot, where like even this podcast, it's like, well, I can't start this podcast unless I have, $20,000 worth of gear and it's got to look really great or whatever. But I've kind of realized that's just kind of my own ego and my own, I guess, idea of what I think good quality is.
Yeah.
But other people, they're like, I don't really care so much about that. I'm going to listen to a podcast if you're talking good stuff and you have good guests or whatever. So, I guess what can we say to entrepreneurs that are listening about how they could think about quality maybe in a different way that can help them, maybe just do better things in their business?
This is almost universal. We get probably 5 to 10 inquiries of new business per week at our factory. People wanting to make a lemonade, a sparkling water, a spring water. They want to take on Liquid Death. They want to take on Alani. They want to take on Olipop, prebiotic soda, adaptogenic energy drink, whatever. Every week. Every single startup that I've talked to is far too obsessed with their packaging, which is they call their brand.
Yeah.
And they're always sending questions like, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? Forget that. Forget that at your scale. You're not even on a shelf.
Yeah.
That can evolve, and it will evolve. It took Nike a long time to remove the word Nike and just keep the swoosh. McDonald's, you look, billboards now will just have like a quarter of their
the golden
arch. It'll just have like a little sliver of it and be like next right. They can get away with that because they have dozens of years of that brand attribute that is unique to them. Unique in terms, they have a scale that when you think that yellow and red, you think of them. When you think polar bears, you might think Coca-Cola.
Right.
You're not there. You're obsessing over your packaging. I want you to obsess over your distribution.
Yeah.
Where is this going? Who is the audience? who's it for, right? They always start with, I want to do this. And I go, who are you selling that to? Right? You're saying that you're in a university town and you want to make this low calorie beverage, this low calorie, let's say, cider. Okay. And you're selling to university students. Have you been to a university bar? All right. I'm not saying there's not students who go, ooh, I want the low sugar thing. They exist. But I could tell you, I go to a lot, we sell a decent amount at different bars. We have a decent amount come to our bars. And you've got a massive segment who love sugar.
Yeah.
Right? And they're coming in going, I want the fruitiest, most fun drink you've got.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And they're like, and you're trying to sell them an adaptogenic spritzer.
Yeah.
You're trying to sell them something with aromatics and bitters. What? Have you even thought of who the consumer is? Think of who you're serving and then figure out, forget the brand, forget the packaging, but figure out that first and what they want. Nobody ever does the consumer insights.
Yeah.
It's always just, I want to mimic this product, but I want to do it this way. And they don't think about who's actually enjoying that product and where it's being distributed.
Who's at the other end of the channel? Yeah.
Who's at the other end of the channel? And then, what's that opportunity? Are you staying local or are you going to go global with it? A lot of what we see is people with an idea from Los Angeles or a much larger market, and they go, we want microplastic-free spring water. And you go, if you said that to a Nova Scotian, would they have any idea what you're talking about?
Right. And would want to shell out money for it.
And shell out
Probably
money.
a premium price too, I'd imagine.
They don't even have canned water in Nova Scotia yet. And you're thinking 5 steps ahead in terms of one of the trend-settingest markets in North America. And 90% of the time, those trends die. They don't, as soon as they go one state over to Idaho or Utah or Oregon.
It's like the can't break in, eh?
Yeah, it's done.
Because, I guess that's the problem when you're following trends. You're just like, hey, this is really popular right now. And then people are going to buy it because maybe they know about it. But then there's nothing behind that. So I really love what you're saying here is that you really have to figure out who it is that you're serving. What kind of niche are you going to carve yourself into to solve almost like solving a specific problem? Like know what the hell your problem is first. Who you're solving it for. Yeah.
But yeah, it all comes back to solving a problem. And people, I hear a lot of folks say, how does an energy drink solve a problem? I'm like, the solution is in the title. I'm tired.
Yeah.
They're like, okay. And they usually rebuttal with, well, how does Coca-Cola solve a problem? I'm like, I'm bored. I'm thirsty.
Yeah.
I want a treat.
Yeah, exactly.
It solves a problem. It might not be the right solution, but perceptively from the consumer side, it solves their problem. So think about that first.
Well, that's interesting because I just did a trip to Ontario. So we're driving. It's like 18 hours to get there. And I don't drink coffee. And because it was 2 days of driving, I was like, I feel like I need an energy drink. And I don't drink any of this kind of stuff. So I go to the store and I see there's Red Bull and I see Monster. And I'm like, I have to make a decision on what I'm going to buy here. And I was kind of actively thinking like, why am I making this decision? And I look at the Monsters and they had all kinds of very interesting, unique looking cans, like your cans that you have here. And I'm like, that actually looks really, really cool. And then I was reading it and it sounds like would be kind of cool. And I ended up buying them over something more established like a Red Bull, just because of the packaging and everything that they put forth on it. So, it was just really interesting for me to think about why I made that decision to buy something that at the end of the day, it didn't even really taste very good because I don't really like energy drinks. But I'm almost like, if I'm going to buy them, I want to buy this one because I felt like it almost spoke to me in a sense in terms of what they had on their covers and their artwork. So just thought it was kind of interesting.
It is. And you put a lot more conscious thought into it than the average consumer does. Usually those items are at the front because they are impulse items. And usually the buying decision, the subconscious prerequisites are already buried within you. And people like to think they made a conscious choice to choose X or Y, but the choice was made moments before you walked into that store.
Yeah.
And you just didn't know it.
Especially with these big brands, they have so many millions of dollars in understanding human psychology and whatever, and that they have it just nailed down to a T. And then you don't have a choice. You're just gonna buy it.
And the number one mistake I still see is that obsession over the packaging and the design and the brand, because they have nothing. They have no distribution. They don't have a single customer yet, but they love the look of this thing they created on this t-shirt or on this mug or whatever. And they're already thinking about being the next Liquid Death or the next Red Bull.
Yeah.
Before they've even sold something. You're not going to get it right. And what the first time or the second or the 50th.
Yeah.
Red Bull didn't get it right for 20 plus years, which is something I don't hear talked about enough.
Yeah.
Originally it was for, I think it was Vietnamese factory workers.
For their drink. That's what they.
It was
Okay.
a blue collar drink. I think it was Vietnam or Thailand. It was somewhere in Southeast Asia.
Mm-hmm.
It was for blue collar factory workers. The artwork was very crude. It was very, kind of looked like a beer can.
Yeah.
And this businessman was flying there for something, and he had one on the plane, and it was a red eye, and he was exhausted. He went, "I'm going to bomb this presentation." And then he had a Red Bull, and he's like, "What the hell is this?" And he just smoked that morning presentation. And he went, he's like, "It's great that the factory workers thrive off this."
Mm-hmm.
He's like, "But business people should be drinking this. Athletes should be drinking this."
Yeah.
And he eventually raised capital, acquired the company, and pivoted it in that way. And it was going to be a business drink. But that's not what it is today, is it? It's now a weird alternative sports drink.
Right. Yeah. The guys that go the extreme sports and all that kind of stuff. And
Totally.
Yeah.
And over the years, now they have their secondary and tertiary SKUs that they're launching. Here's a sugar-free one. Tropical has been big for a few years, so here's your pineapple one, and here's your, you never get it right. And each of the cans on the table there has a story behind how many iterations it took.
Right.
To get to where it is now.
Yeah. So stop obsessing. Just get your product out there.
Get it out there and then listen to consumers.
See what they say. Yeah.
And stop thinking grocery. And stop thinking, and not just for beverages, but stop thinking about national distribution or international distribution when you haven't even gone to a farmer's market yet. Consumer packaged goods starts at that level.
Yeah.
You should be at the farmer's markets nights and weekends on top of your regular job if you can't afford to quit your job, and putting it out there and then seeing what they say. And they might go, "Oh, I wanted to try it, but it looked, because it was so colorful on the can, it looked like it was going to be a big flavor bomb."
Right. Yeah.
And I don't like big sweet and whatnot. And you go, "Okay, but it's not a big flavor bomb. So I got to update the design to make it look more neutral."
Yeah.
And they, "Oh, I love this, but it's too much liquid. I need to put it into a smaller format." And you iterate it time and time again.
Yeah.
And then once you hit $250,000 of sales for that single SKU, now you think about exporting it
Right.
the next province or state over.
Yeah. Where it seems like you have the product market fit and kind of go from there. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's extremely agile. You just don't hear about Red Bull and Chobani. You don't hear about these winning consumer packaged goods that scaled to $1 billion plus.
Yeah.
You don't hear about the first 20 years. Everyone thinks they just opened and crushed it.
And I think that's such a great lesson for a whole bunch of different entrepreneurs, because it's not just in the beverage space. It's everything: shoes, athletic clothings, cameras, like you name it. There's so many different iterations of people trying to figure out how to get it right. Even like podcasting, it's like maybe the first 100 episodes are garbage. I don't know, right? Like it just takes a while to get going. And, Joe Rogan didn't become who he was
right
from, episode number 1. He's into the thousands or whatever, right? So
watch some of that early stuff.
Yeah.
I saw one the other day. It came across my feed where he was interviewing Anthony Bourdain in circa 2000. Grainy, bad lighting.
Yeah.
I didn't even recognize it was Bourdain or Rogan. It was that low quality. And I've been reading a lot about Vietnam recently, and that's why I got targeted with it, because he's talking about Vietnam. And I looked at it, I'm like, wow, like that's where you start.
Yep.
Crappy. Get it out there, iterate it, make it a little better, make it a little better, and that's how we've grown everything in our company. Our beverage co-packing service is so much better today than it was 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And 2 years from now, it's going to be even better. Our beer is so much better. The design of the beers is so much better. Everything should be iteratively improving.
Yeah.
But you don't get it right on the first go. So forget your pretty brand.
Right.
Get out there and get somebody to try it and get the feedback and iterate it.
Maybe this would be a good time to ask you what does the future hold for Good Robot? You're branching out into this factory, and I would imagine you probably have some more drinks maybe in the pipeline. I don't know if there's anything you speak to that. And then I want to talk to stuff about you as well too, in terms of where you're going into the future and what's in it for you. But anyways, maybe first we can start with Good Robot. Where do you see Good Robot going in the next few years?
So I'll talk about the two the beverage factory and Good Robot, the brand. So the beverage factory, the manufacturing of other people's beverages, that thing evolves every week. We just added logistics to our services. So now we can actually store and ship products for people, which means theoretically you could get a purchase order from a store and send it to us, and we will manufacture it, and we will store it, and we will ship it, and then you just get a check from that store.
That's nice.
Right? So I imagine in the next year, the thing that I get requested more than anything is just white label and private label energy drinks. I have a concert venue and I want my own energy drink. I have a bunch of pubs and I want my own mocktail, right? I think we're probably going to have a portfolio of ready to go beverages that you can buy, and we can just put your branding on it.
And then that could just be like a small, like limited run or something. Like I just had this
Yeah.
event, I want 5,000 cans or whatever.
Exactly. You can make a
Interesting.
smaller run of it because you're making enough of it for a variety of people.
Interesting. Yeah, because then there's the same recipe or whatever. It's less. You just put it in the can or whatever and print it, and away you go.
Bingo. Yeah.
Interesting.
So I'd say that's coming for the factory. For the Good Robot brand on the wholesale side, so selling our beer across Canada and Atlantic Canada, I think our number one SKU, our Diablo Mexican lager with lime zest and jalapeno, it's got enough.
I actually haven't tried this yet, but I remember because I bought some of this stuff too before the podcast, and I was like, I only bought like one of each. I'm like, shoot, I can't even try this before because if I drink it, then I can't display it. But everything to me is just killer on this thing, like the look and everything, and it's just amazing.
And it took about 4 or 5 iterations, and it'll continue to iterate.
Yeah,
It almost got delisted a few years ago. Sales had flatlined, and we went to the store, and I talked with my sales rep Liam, and he and I went to the store, and we asked, what are customers saying about the product? And the store manager said, well, we haven't tried it because it's probably too spicy.
Oh,
Now, it does have jalapeno in it, but it's a little bit of jalapeno. We went to another store, and they said, oh, I haven't tried it. I don't like spicy food. And I went, oh, interesting. The little component that people loved about it at our bar, where you have the benefit of a bartender over 60 minutes of engaging and educating them, right? That you don't have at a store. You're going, there's a barrier because of this jalapeno. And when you looked at that can design, the devil was right on the front. He's sweating buckets.
Yeah, of course. You're going to think it's like, yeah.
You're going to think it's an absolute. And the other thing was consumers couldn't pronounce the name. It was El Espinazo del Diablo, which meant the devil's backbone. Way too wordy. They were calling it Española, and they were calling it Espiniza, and so we just changed it to Diablo and made the colors cooler. And we listened online. We took all the reviews and looked at the most commonly used words. Besides lime and jalapeno, which were nowhere on the front of the packaging originally, by the way.
Interesting.
Or not very prominent at all. The third thing they were saying was, it's just the right amount of heat. Or it's not actually spicy, it's zippy. Or so on. And so we changed the language to, it's zippy.
Just to reflect what people are actually saying about it.
To reflect what they're saying. All you have to do is take what they're saying and repeat it back to them. Red Bull did an amazing job with that. The story of their athlete pivot, or their college pivot, was they had this 1-800 line on the can.
Oh, did they? Okay.
And they would go check it on a weekday morning, and they'd have all these messages from 2 a.m. from various universities across the United States. And they go, oh my God, I love your product. I put vodka in it. Oh God. Woo, Red Bull. And they're like, you know what? It's not athletes drinking this. It's college kids looking to get messed up, right?
And extend the night by getting that energy shot or whatever.
Bingo. So, what do? Do you fight it? Or do you go, well, it's not the consumer I was expecting, but these guys seem all right. Well, I'll go with them.
Yeah.
Same thing with us. So this beer has gone through 6 or 7 iterations now of packaging, formulation tweaks, and so on and so forth, and has been our number one and fastest growing SKU for multiple years. That guy is actually, you can't find a product like that in Alberta, and therefore it might actually have export legs. So I imagine that's probably going to be going west. And then the hospitality side of things. Hospitality is a never-ending game of just, they call it the salt shaker theorem. Danny Meyer calls it that in his hospitality book, Setting the Table. If you want the salt and pepper shaker in the middle of the table, and you train your people to do that, Over the next month, it's going to shift its way away from the center and it's going to make its way to the edge of the table. And then you got to retrain them to put it in the middle of the table. That's hospitality in a nutshell.
Okay.
You're just always
Yeah.
training and retraining on the same standard you set 11 years ago that still just needs to be very closely managed.
Yeah. Is it just because people just kind of just forget about it, or it's just not front of mind maybe, or?
There's a lot to remember in hospitality. There's a lot of steps of service. There's promos, drinks. It's a very fast environment.
Yeah.
And it's turbulent
makes
too.
sense.
People act differently when they're being served.
Yeah.
They get very different, right?
Yeah.
And they don't sort of understand what goes into it. And so I find that constant disruptions. If you deal with 400 customers in one day, each one of those customers is going to have about 10 requests. So that's 4,000 requests a day, right? And then that's assuming nothing gets spilled or broken. That's assuming the promotions and the products are the same as the day before. Nothing got 86'd or removed from the menu.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all normal.
And everything's going to work smoothly from the kitchen and everything.
Totally.
Yeah, course,
and then a rugby team of 30 guys shows up in the middle of the afternoon unexpectedly and just power drinks and eats all your chicken.
Yeah.
And now you got to get rid of the chicken off the menu.
Yeah.
Right. So it's an extremely turbulent, volatile environment that is very difficult to do with 3 locations. It almost becomes easier with 5 or 6. It's like good with 1 or good with 6.
Wow,
and we're kind of in this middle of we've got 3.
Yeah.
Very tough to manage. So that's going to have a guest experience that a standard that needs to be maintained and also evolve as consumer tastes change.
Are you going to be looking into getting some more locations for just like I said, in the hospitality?
We don't know.
Okay.
We don't know, to be honest. It's right now we're trying to maintain a standard and rebuild a standard post-COVID.
I feel like there could also be maybe more money to be had with the factory as well too, right? In terms of, so maybe sometimes like, okay, well, this just makes the most financial sense, at least right now. Start pumping out some good volume there and then, see what happens.
Yeah, it's certainly, from a business perspective, it's a need that was riskier with more return potential that everyone in the market needs who is a beverage producer in Atlantic Canada or outside of Atlantic Canada. Because we have produced for some large companies who don't actually have facilities themselves.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like Monster Energy Drink had no manufacturing facilities. Olipop, the prebiotic soda or probiotic soda, doesn't have any manufacturing facilities. Most of these consumer packaged goods brands actually don't have tangible assets.
Except for maybe like the recipes or whatever.
They have the recipe, which you can't really sell. It's worth nothing from an IP perspective. What they have is sales and distribution. That's worth something that an investor will buy.
Yeah, right.
And so you have these multi-$100 million or even $1 billion exits that are happening, and the whole company is just run off laptops.
Oh, that's crazy. That's crazy.
It's wild, right? So they just co-pack everywhere. Co-pack here. So there's big companies that will produce this product in this market here because it saves on freight. They instead of producing at one facility in Ontario and going east and west with it, they produce it here, and here.
Yeah. Do those bigger companies have to worry about quality control, or is it just
Yes.
the rest that they do? Because like if your facility could maybe do things slightly different than this other one, and then even though it's the same recipe, how do you make sure it's the same? But
Monster Energy, unless it's intentional, because sometimes brands intentionally make something taste different in China than here, for example.
Right. Oh, for sure.
But for the most part, it has to taste the same, whether it's here or New Hampshire.
Right.
So they have usually, we've worked with them, right? They come in with their quality team and their spec sheets.
Okay. Yeah.
And they've got it down to a science.
Yeah.
Both the metrics they got to hit and the processes.
So I just want to move on, I guess, and talk a little bit about what's next for you, Joshua Counsil. What are you doing? So I know you've gotten into public speaking and doing keynote talks, which is kind of really fascinating. And I know you mentioned something before. I'm going to bring this book up here, from strength to strength. So I think you're talking a lot about the difference between looking at Bach and Charles Darwin, and saying how Darwin, when he got older, he was kind of just trying to find the next great theory or what have you. and just kind of still in his work and just being kind of miserable. Whereas Bach, on the other hand, went into this avenue of creation and teaching other people how to do the stuff that he would do, and had a much more fulfilling kind of end of life in a sense. Going back to you, and we're talking about you wanting to create experiences for people and what have you. Have you gone into this other stage of your life, whereas before you were, the entrepreneur, you kind of created this Good Robot brand and everything? Are you trying to move into another stage where you're trying to find, difference in meaning or what have you in your life as you're on to this next stage of teaching and doing keynote speaking? Like, I guess basically, like, what's driving you into wanting to do this keynote speaking?
It's funny. Earlier we talked about the murder mystery dinner theater business my parents ran. And that was my 6th grade public speech, was about my parents. And all the other parents, I remember thinking when they saw the speech, their kids were doing the speeches on Angels or Amelia Earhart or whatever, and then here's a kid who did it on his parents, and I'm sure those parents were like, "Why did my kid do?" Right? But it was because I admired or got excited by, or whatever you want to call it, what my parents did, which was quite different. I loved public speaking. I come from a theater family. Didn't love theater in the traditional sense, but I do like performing. I love podcasts and being on camera and being in front of a stage. I love influence. And when I get a direct message on LinkedIn that says, I looked at one yesterday. I got one yesterday, and it was, your speech at your keynote has made me do things differently with my team and also in my personal life. And when you actually see the person reach out and say, I'm doing this now because of something you said, that's very fulfilling. And it fills a hole that I don't necessarily get working in the business. Working in the business, change management is very tough. People tend to like what's familiar, even if it's not as good as what could be. Outside the business, you get this opportunity to tell people about something like From Strength to Strength by Arthur Brooks, and you hear them change the way they're doing things. That is so, because they want to, not because they have to.
Yeah.
That brings me an immense amount of satisfaction. I love making a crowd laugh. And entrepreneurship, I'm somebody, I've learned about myself, I need a lot of validation. I can be very sensitive, and you don't get a lot of it working in the business. It can be very tough, and the things that feel meaningful are things people don't notice, and the things that don't feel meaningful are ones you get accolades for. You get a clap on the back, but you don't feel it.
Right.
When I go in front of a crowd and talk about what's been going on, and here's how we solved this problem, and here's the result, and here's a framework, and so on and so forth, and the crowd likes it, and you get messages, and you get invited to speak at this event next, and emails, and it's the best. It's very validating.
Yeah, you're giving an experience. It's almost like it's the same thing, I would say, but in a different format, because you're still giving an experience to people, except that experience is packaged in such a different way that you're showing them internally what they can do in their life or in their business to be better, right? And they're happy because of the experience you gave them. You made them see something in a new way, and then in turn, I totally can resonate with you in terms of how good that can make you feel, because you're like, wow, the words that I said have inspired someone to do X, Y, Z, and they're happy, and like that makes me happy too, So I totally resonate with that. It's amazing.
It is. It's guest experience. It's customer service for a 200 to 1,000 person room at the same time. You're serving them all the same dish, and you could see you scan the audience and you go, ooh, that person didn't like that.
Right. Yeah.
But you watch these people over here, and they're writing things, they're taking pictures of yours, or they're laughing.
Yeah.
I love stand-up comedy. I've got hundreds of stand-up comics I love. And when I lived in Seattle, I saw so many world-class talents. And there was a period where I thought, I kind of wanted I love this art form so much. But I realized, to be consistently funny, maybe not for me. But one comic said, when you're up there, you don't have to necessarily be funny, but you do have to be interesting. And that stuck with me of, well, I could be interesting, That sort of
Right.
takes the pressure off, and then, try to sprinkle in some humor here and there. So it's coming from that theater background, it scratches an itch that just wasn't being scratched growing a business.
And do you see yourself really gravitating towards that
Big time.
in the future? Yeah.
I love it. What I love about it is, you talk about purpose when I'm having a really bad day or a bad week, which is frequent with entrepreneurship.
Yep.
People talk about loving it, and there are people that do, and there are periods you love, and especially those formative years. That first year is so much love,
Yep.
but most of it is really unpleasant. And I get to the end of the day and I go, well, at least this is going to be a really funny keynote in a few years.
Right,
Right?
yeah.
This sucks so much today.
Yeah.
I hate this,
But yeah.
but this is going to be interesting as a story.
Yeah. It's like take a screenshot of that negative bank balance, and in 2 years, it's going to be a great
That's
story.
going to be
You can
that's
put
going
that
to be
up
a
on the.
funny story in
Yeah.
a couple of years, right? So I find it helps me to propel through the hard periods too. It gives me something to get excited about. Like, oh, what a miserable 6 months that was. I'm going to make a presentation about it.
So it's very interesting you're saying here how entrepreneurship is a hardship. And I think a lot of people don't understand that. And like when you were starting out, I think I read somewhere or I heard somewhere where, you were sleeping in like your brewery or whatever. You were just like upstairs or whatever. So
4
like,
years, yeah.
you're sleeping on the floors of your office or whatever. You're going through a hard time. And for entrepreneurs, maybe there's some that do understand that it's going to be hardships. And they're like, you know what? Okay, I know it's going to be hard, but I'm willing to take that sacrifice, or I'm willing to do that, and I'm willing to give it a shot. What would you recommend, or what would you say to that entrepreneur that's just going to be starting that journey? What would you say to them to keep in mind in order for them to have the best possible chance of success?
Yeah, I have this conversation bi-weekly anyway with folks mostly young out of college, but a lot of career pivots too. There's somebody we're helping. She's in her 50s. She's a lawyer, and now she's getting into consumer packaged goods.
Mm-hmm.
Quit her law firm. Now she's making a canned product. The conversation I always have is it all comes down to execution, perseverance, not brilliance, not money. It just comes down to just grind. And the question I ask, especially for the college kids, on top of what you're doing right now, your regular job, are you willing to go work at a farmer's market every night and weekends, pumping your product? Are you that passionate about it? If you are, do it. You're ready for it.
Right.
If they're like, no, you're not ready. You're never going to be ready if that doesn't sound like something you're willing to do, because that's what's required. There's no easy win. And in consumer packaged goods, the failure rates are massive. Massive failure rates. It is a industry in which you'll be unprofitable for the first 8 to 20 years.
That's a long time.
It's a
That's a
long
long time.
8 to 15, or at least cash negative, or constantly borrowing money, and hustling to move that thing.
That's crazy for the consumer. Is there a vertical that maybe people can start with? If they're thinking of, I want to create some kind of drink or whatever, do you steer them towards something else that might be a little bit more attainable, or is there even anything that's comparable?
If they're asking, I'm happy to steer. I don't like to deter people from doing it.
Mm.
I just want to make sure
Yeah.
that they're not wasting their own time, because too often, this is the other call I have weekly, usually from established business people. Oh, I have a roofing business that does very well. Oh, I'm got a branding agency and it does really well. Consulting services have really nice returns because there's very little overhead.
Yeah.
CPG, consumer packaged goods, does not.
Yeah.
And they go, we just me and my agency buddies, or me and my whatever, we just want to do this for fun.
Right.
You just want to run a consumer packaged goods brand for fun?
Yeah.
Are you selling it just in farmers markets and alternative retail channels like that premium store there and that one? Well, no, we want to get it into Sobeys, but once we get the brand right,
Yeah.
this is the honest conversation. I just had this yesterday. Once we get the brand right, it'll move itself.
Yeah.
And the volumes that they
goodness.
think they're going to do are insane. I said,
Yeah.
You're lucky. And this is with boots on the ground in the store, talking to customers, sampling, talking to the store manager, marketing, etc., on a shoestring budget. You're lucky if you're going to sell a case a week per store.
Yeah.
That's 24 cans. And they go, no, we'll sell that per day or per hour. And you're like, no, you won't. Show me one brand that's not celebrity endorsed or owned and operated by Pepsi that has done that, and I'll shut my mouth. But there are no unicorns. There are perceived unicorns that have 15 years, 20 years of grind behind them that nobody paid attention to.
Yeah, it's the overnight success. Just took 20 years to get there.
It was 20 overnight years. Yeah.
That's really good. It kind of ties into what we said earlier about the guidance counselor and being like, you know what? Just ask the questions and just find out more about it. Maybe not so much telling them exactly what it is they need to do, but at least get them to understand maybe more of the whole picture as opposed to just like go down that path and that's it.
Yeah. And these are not dumb people. These are not dumb business people who ask these questions. It's just that they have these other businesses that are service focused, that serve a need, that have a high markup. Pepsi does not run a roofing company.
Yep.
Coca-Cola is not running branding consulting.
Yeah.
They probably do,
but
but they're not competing in your local market with an agency, right?
Yeah. They don't have a podcast studio where everything's there. People can just come in and
right.
record it.
Where you can make a nice, healthy margin and have very little debt because you didn't have any, you don't even have an office because now you can work remotely.
Yeah.
You're not going to get that with CPG. You got to travel a lot. You got to sell it at a price that's going to have a 20 or 30% margin. You're going to have to borrow a boatload for marketing because an end cap display at Farm Boy or Costco for one or a couple weeks is tens of thousands of dollars for a few stores. It's capital intensive and your product does not sell itself.
Man, there's so much knowledge there you have there. That's amazing. Thank you for sharing this. This is amazing.
Of course.
We've had I have all these notes here. There's so many different things that I know I wanted to get to, but we didn't have a chance to. So we'll have to do this again sometime if you ever have time and if it was a good enough experience that you've had here.
Sure.
But Josh, thank you again for coming here. It was really amazing talking with you and learning more about the things that you're doing.
Yeah, this is great.
Really appreciate that. And thanks again.
Hope this takes off for you, Odom.
Oh, I appreciate that.
Awesome.
Yeah, thank you.